I get fed these like meme funny videos of like the marriage stuff, and it's actually a way to express unexpressed anger towards my wife. I just send her an Instagram that expresses my feelings for me, and she goes, "Ha ha ha, so us." And then everything it's interesting. Instagram is saving marriages.
I sent her the one the other day. It was marriage is the key to a successful marriage is being the first one to say, "I didn't sleep well last night."
So that you can have the upper hand all day.
Yeah.
It's really weird how we're all the same in so many ways. And like social media has proven one thing. It's like, I remember it used to be like entertainment was like, oh, what show do you like? And you would only find out by like talking to a person in person in your social circle. And you'd find out we both like the same show. How about that? And social media is like, we all are the same thing. How about that? That's kind of funny.
Yeah. That's how I made my first friend in camp. I was like, "You've seen The Twilight Zone?" I thought I was the only person on earth who has seen that.
It's the universalization of everything, which is kind of funny, right? You see these like nuance. I thought I only experienced those things.
I know. That's why everyone loves social media, because it brings everyone together, and it makes everyone realize how we're all the same, and like we don't need to fight about anything stupid, and like we're all just, you know what I'm saying? Like we're all on this earth together, so we might as well get along.
That's exactly what
it's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible what Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey have done.
Trying to make sense of that because you're being tongue in cheek. But how like there's actually like you thought like you thought like singing is a rare talent. Turns out there's like there's so many people who can sing or dance or have talent or have senses of humor. So it's interesting. I think in a deep way, the way the loss of celebrity cachet or like the allure of celebrity has gone down, not just because they're accessible, but because you realize that their skills are actually a lot more common, and social media has shined a window on that onto that. You know, like we used to be in the time when we were in awe of people who could like have talent, and I feel like social media has like shown the world like there's a lot of people who can like, and it's kind of beautiful, but you're like, you don't think that's had an effect?
I don't know if I ever worship celebrity because of their talent. I think part of being a celebrity is you're sort of like chosen, or at least that's how it used to be. I don't know, like do people worship Brad Pitt because he's a good actor? I don't know. I don't really think so. I don't think they
worship Celine Dion because she's a good singer, and they worship, I'd say, Leonardo DiCaprio because he's a good actor. And who else?
I don't know. I think that part's kind of taken for granted, the acting part. You don't hear a ton of conversations about what makes Leo such a great actor. Here and there. If you're listening to like a film,
this moment shines a light on how we view show business. You assume these people are chosen. And I'm not saying that that's why they're successful. I'm saying the reason for the worship that people give them, I don't think is because of their tremendous skill. It's almost a virtuous cycle at some point where you're famous because you're famous, and you're famous and you become more and more and more famous. I don't know, like movie stars are sort of movie stars. Of course they're good actors. They have to be good actors, but that's taken for granted. There's a charisma to them that makes them into who they are. But that charisma is linked to what they can do.
Yeah, no, I'm separating their celebrity. I don't know if celebrity itself has much to do with skill. Celebrity. I'm not talking about.
I guess I'm saying it certainly has something to do with this skill. Like they can do something I really can't do, or that's rare. That's like a rare commodity. So people kind of turn it into this like rare diamond sort of thing, this untouchable like. And maybe it's not always warranted, but we assume if they're being put on this huge stage at a time when there was only one stage to be put on, you're like, wow, this person. Yeah, it kind of speaks to both that they're chosen and selected through the gatekeeper by the gatekeepers to be pedestaled, like, but now everyone can see whoever they want, and it turns out there's a lot of them, a lot more than we thought, and no one has to select them but the people. I mean, it's that generic conversation of what social media has done on the positive side. But in a way, I don't think it's a coincidence that people seem to care a lot less, tying it to the election, about celebrity endorsements for Kamala versus Trump going on the Nelk Boys, you know, new media versus old media, like Beyonce getting up there and saying, "Vote Kamala, baby," no one cares. Nobody cares. So they lose their authority over everything. So that celebrity part you're talking about has certainly died down. You know, I think social media has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say it's more. I see it more as not as about talent, but as about fame. Like there are so many more famous people than there used to be.
Right.
I follow this Instagram account of it's from red carpets in the 90s, and I'm just like to get on the part that fascinates me is to get on that red carpet. The hole was the hole to become one of those people was so tiny.
Yeah.
And these people got to live these magnificent lives. You know, when we spoke to John Stossel, I wish we had spoken more to him about that, of what was it like to be famous for doing the news? There was only 10 people on the universe that got to live that life. That's crazy. And now just so many people are famous. So it's who cares what Beyonce says? I have 1 million followers also.
Right. Good. You know? Or I have more. Oh, yeah, exactly. And my followers actually engage with me and know me and show up.
Exactly. Right.
And yours are automatic. It's interesting.
Right. Like as if you and Kamala dance together. Yeah. That's something you guys do. And you just let us in on it today.
Yeah.
Whereas, Trump seems to be having these conversations with Musk and Rogan privately, and that is a thing that they kind of do.
Yeah,
they do kind of know each other.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's also it reminds me. I feel like the last memory I have of that kind of fame was TRL, Total Request Live, 90s, where the closest you get to the famous person was that window. Look at us! Right. Oh my God, it's actually Justin.
And Carson Daly's job was just to be the one person in between you and the famous person.
Exactly. It's so interesting. It is. Yeah. It's just interesting. And I think it all kind of ties in to the political landscape, the entertainment landscape, the culture. Anyway.
For sure. They were, the biggest part of the stories from a couple last weeks that I've been most interested in is that what this election really was the question was Biden the blip, or was Trump the blip? Was it going to be blip, back to Trump is the blip, and now back to normal, everybody, forever? Or is it going to be Trump back to normal for a second, that's the blip, and then no, but Trump really was the new normal, and it's a new normal in all the in the ways we see celebrity, in the way we see fame, and in the way we see the entire world there has been a definitive shift now, we can say.
Feels like the rules have changed. The only thing I think about, though, is Trump's not a repeatable event himself. It's a lot of it's tied to the fact that he's such a unique figure.
It's the campaign, the type of politics he runs, the type of politician he is, the type of campaigner he was. That's what you need to do now. Or you have to build those coalitions also in order to win.
The question is also how much of it is the country has come out to support Trump and it's his win and victory versus how much they're rejecting the alternatives to Trump. And that remains to be seen. I'm not sure. I obviously part of me wants to say I think his own charisma and persuasion and abilities have won people over, but that also paired with the alternative being so clearly worse to people, that together is what is the perfect storm for a massive victory. Right. I'm not sure if the next time around a centrist Democrat could win. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
But I think either way, whoever runs next for the Democrats are not going to be relying on Jimmy Kimmel to get their message out. And whatever happens, and that wasn't as clear as it was. Now as it was 6 weeks ago.
I mean, I saw something. I saw Anthony. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. Where's the light?
Please. Comments. Comment. God bless you.
Oh yes.
See those comments.
I think it was Anthony Scaramucci. He was talking. He was like talking on podcasts about like this new realignment that's happening. I can't do his voice, but it's that Italian kind of gentle sort of thing. But he was talking about AOC was like he was saying she is paying attention, and what she did was, if you noticed, she was interviewing people, or she went on a live and she said, "How many people voted for me?" And then how many people voted for Trump, and was focusing on this alignment and realignment that happened on this demographic. Yeah. And he said she took down the pronouns in her Twitter bio, like, and she's like, that's whatever that messaging is or that signaling is, it's not working. It's further siloing us and isolating us. So I thought that was an interesting observation. That maybe it means nothing because everything could be BS. Maybe
there's a whole new Richie Torres and John Fetterman are going really hard at the establishment. Richie Torres called out the New York Times yesterday about what? Segue? About the headline they ran about the rabbi who was killed in the UAE.
Remains to be seen. Motive remains to be seen. I just read that article. Is that what it was?
I saw it was rabbi who was missing, found dead.
Yeah.
Like, and he wrote he wasn't just found dead. You know that, right?
Yeah. So on to that story, just for people paying attention, to get into some heavier things. A Chabad rabbi in the United Arab Emirates was kidnapped and murdered in the UAE.
Rabbi Tzvi Kogan, age 28.
28 years old. And I don't know what your initial thoughts are when you hear news like this, but for me, I can't remind myself enough, and I don't know what else needs to be demonstrated when these events occur, that there's this argument against the anti-Israel argument about anti-Zionism not being anti-Semitism, that this has nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. This is all about just criticizing the Israeli government. And you see events like this, you see what happens in Amsterdam, you see mobs of people vandalizing kosher restaurants. And it's like, this is a Jewish man in the UAE. And they say Iran was possibly behind it. I mean, the details of it remain to be seen.
Yeah,
three Uzbek nationals have been arrested, and there's investigation about apparently Iran being involved and whatnot. But the uptick in violent acts, there was another shooting, I think, in another recent violent attack. I forget where it was.
In Memphis.
Yeah.
Is that what you read? About a delivery? An Israeli delivery man was called somewhere, and then when he opened the door, they shot him.
And so
they're not sure what happened, but they think it might be.
Yeah, there are people in this world who see the mobs in the street calling for intifada revolution, and the people vandalizing kosher restaurants and attacking Jews and murdering Jews. They see that as proof that what Israel is doing is so bad. Look what it's bringing out of people. Look what it's making the world do. Look how unsafe Israel is making Jews in the world. These people are coming out. So clearly what Israel is doing is that wrong. And it reminds me of just the historical cycle that people who want to erase Jews never want to do it for evil purposes. They always convince themselves that it's for good, that it's destroying an evil by speaking up against the Jews or Israel. And anything adjacent to Israel that may look like it has Jewish identity, like this rabbi. I remember going to this Chabad concert that had nothing to do with Israel, and a Palestinian protest group showed up. And can you imagine if there was only one Muslim country in the world surrounded by Jewish countries? And I've said this before, surrounded by Judah, the Republic of Israel, Israelistan, 20 some odd Jewish countries attacking it constantly, and you had innocent Muslims in the street and mosques being protested and attacked. Like, this would be a no-brainer. And for some reason, it's a dead-brainer when it comes to Jews, when it comes to Israel. And you see this, I see these protests in the street as the proof of the anti-Semitism and the link of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. And some people see it as the proof for the justification to hate Jews. Not that it's not there, but that it's justified. And I find that so sick and so sad. And it's a realization of the October 8th reality that I never ceases to, in a way, surprise me that that's the world we're in. It's like these people, and then, so under that framework, there's nothing anyone can do to Jews because they're Jews that would prove that this is about anti-Semitism, according to these people. There's nothing they could do. They could slaughter every Jew in Israel and scream, "We are killing the Jews," happily. And they would say, well, you see, that's because of, they would attribute the agency to Israel. And they would attribute you calling that out as anti-Semitism as proof that you are just using that as an excuse and trying to control people's true ethics and suppress them speaking out. It's sort of brilliant, unfalsifiable thing, So
your boy Dennis Prager had a really interesting line when he went on Patrick Bet David. Did you see that?
Yep.
He said something
for reasons only God knows. For reasons only God can answer, and I mean this definitively. For reasons only God can explain, and I can't explain this. I've taught Jewish history for decades. And I say this in particular, and I've never said it before, and I'll say it today. Is that
very
close?
Good. That's very good. That's very good. That's very good.
The bastion of liberal thinking at Columbia University. I taught Jewish history there for 25 years. I've never had this happen in my life. I saw a chicken cross the road, I swear to God. The chicken said an anti-Semitic comment. It's affecting the animals now. I've never, ever seen this. With Jew hatred is unique like nothing else.
That's good. The unique, the like you really need to blow your nose.
I've been trying to crack a Dennis Prager for years. I haven't been able to do it. I'm trying to do it now. Watching enough of it, I'm trying to do it. Anyway, yeah, you were saying.
He said, the anti-Semites never hated all Jews. That was an invention by the Nazis. Hitler was the first one to say it's a racial thing and there's not a single Jew on planet Earth. That's okay. But anti-Semitism was always focused on particular types of Jews. It was like either the ones who refused to, adopt Greek culture, the ones who refused to convert to Christianity, the ones who refused this or that or that. Now it's no, we don't have a problem with Jews. We just have the problem with the Jews who support Israel. But that is perfectly in line with historical anti-Semitism. The only thing it's not in line with is Nazi anti-Semitism, which was the aberration. So what we're seeing now perfectly fits into the history that we tell.
Wasn't it refreshing to see finally on PBD like a serious guest to just silence the room for a second? Like it was a noticeable thing because Patrick has had all these people on who are kind of goofy and kind of ridiculous, and it leaves Patrick always going, okay, okay, I want to talk about that for a second. Okay, that's interesting. So you actually believe that the Jews are like controlling things. I get that, but then Dennis comes in and lays it all out, and then they all go, yeah, I have nothing to say. That's pretty salient.
Yeah. I actually had Patrick McDavid said something that actually really bothered me, which was he's like we're friends with everybody. We're friends with Tucker and Candace. We're friends with them. And he's like, we'll listen to any argument anyone says, which is a nice idea in theory. Yeah. But I wish what Prager had to back to him is like what Candace and Tucker are saying are not arguments. They're like slander. They're like libel. They're like not based in fact. These aren't arguments that are worth like delving into and talking publicly and having an open and free discussion about to sift out the bad ideas from the good ideas. This is just like anti-Semitic rhetoric a lot of times.
That may be true, but
I wish he would say we're a show and like anyone with an interesting opinion can come on and talk about it, and we'll talk about it because like we're here to entertain people.
That is what he's saying. That is what he's saying.
No, he's not saying that. I think he's saying like we believe in like free speech and like and like the free transfer exchange of ideas, which is different than saying.
But you don't think
on the internet.
Whether you disagree with that view about dialogue, which I can understand. I kind of understand both. Like just because we believe in free speech and open dialogue doesn't mean everything is valid and worth engaging and discussing in. There are some things that are a waste of time. But I have come across in this space people who are just absolutists. And I think it ties in. I think it's like we are a show. We're having the public conversations, and I like that. I like that conversation. We're having that conversation. Like they like elevating everything, and if it's provocative, like they want to see maybe an anti-Semite get smacked down. But it is theater, and so there's a belief out there. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I hear what you're saying. There is a belief out there that like let's all talk about it. Let's talk about it. And if something is on the ascendant in the culture, I don't know. What's more effective? Like, I'm just throwing it out there, devil's advocate. Is it more effective to write a hit piece on Dan Bilzerian or have him on and have him get humiliated?
Fair enough, but
I
guess it offends me a little bit when he's like, we're friends with Candace and Tucker, where it's like, well, if you're friends with him, you're kind of not friends with me, because like I have a problem with that. Like you could say like that sort of terminology of like we're friends. I don't know. It was kind of offensive, but just back to what we were saying, like saying that with Dennis Prager in the room, I think you could kind of see they felt a little bit foolish, like.
Right.
You know, like with him.
And he also said that. He said, oh, okay, but let me explain this to you. Okay. This is just, and he did lay the smack down a little. When he says friends with them, I still think there's a line to be drawn, and he wouldn't say that about like, I don't know if he would say that about everybody just because they have an opinion. I think he draws the line maybe in a different spot than you or me and what he's saying.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if PBD would.
I don't know him that well.
But I'm saying I don't know if he would say, listen, we're friends with Richard Spencer. We're friends with such and such neo-Nazi. I don't know if he would say that. Look, but we'd have him on to have a conversation because we value that, you know. But
it might be time to start grouping them together.
Right, or you're just saying the standards. Your standard is like, look, like have some standards. I understand that. And he's had people on who are just saying crazy things, and it's bothered me. But, you know, I'm also just of the – I don't know. I see – I understand that argument of like you're criticizing sort of what's the motivation versus the argument that like
yeah.
And you're like, there's a motivation there that's just like, let's just put these on because it's provocative. Forget the harm it'll cause and all that stuff. There's a recklessness to that, which is fair.
Which, by the way, I respect. Like you're here to make a successful YouTube channel and make money and build an entertainment company.
It's
that's
a little
cool.
Bit,
I'm cool with that.
If we're being precise, your criticism is under the guise of free speech and open exchange of ideas. You're really just putting on a theater that causes a lot of harmful ideas to be perpetuated and spread. And you're claiming it's not because you believe in free speech, but it's really because this stuff clicks, you know.
And the harm is that it's lending them authority by calling them arguments and by calling them like, you know, friends of the show and people with interesting ideas who.
Unless you kind of can push back. Larry David would like interview Osama bin Laden and no one ever confused.
Larry.
Remember Larry?
I'd love to see that.
Well, what's it? Why do you keep wanting to go? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. And then he goes, I want to blow up America. Bum, 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 bum. Larry David. Larry
two planes?
Larry
King.
Yeah, 2 planes? Really? Did you have to have 2? God, that's awful. No, Larry King. I mean, there was this school of some of it stems from this school of journalism that like old school journalism where they would go into like if they would go into a cave in Afghanistan and interview terrorists to understand them.
Osama bin Laden is different than Candace Owens. Like Osama bin Laden he was a powerful person who was changing the world and had some real ideas. You know, like and he meant it.
Sure, but there are culturally relevant,
different than Candace Owens,
different than a lot. Yes, but like the culturally relevant is what they're interested in. Culturally and politically relevant things, and whoever's in that space. So if someone's making a buzz, I hear you. I saw Dan Bilzerian on Piers Morgan. I'm like, Piers, what are you doing? Right. Like, you might be virtuous in saying, "Oh, I have to." You're disgusting. You just didn't even have to have this conversation.
But
at all.
At the same time, like you said, now there's really no question about Dan Bilzerian. There's nothing to really question anymore. You really shouldn't be in the same room with him if you're.
I guess the only question left is it valuable to expose and humiliate someone like
that? That's what I mean. He had him on the show, and it's gross, but now there's a period at the end of that sentence with Dan Bilzerian. You know, now the whole world can see. You know?
So is that valuable? In some ways, you know.
Yeah, but I think Piers would probably say like, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, I found that Prager moment was nice to see somebody kind of serious with authority on the subject, not just kibitzing and talking crap. And then when he did all that, all those people I've seen on that cast of PBD in that episode, who I've seen entertain kind of yuckier ideas. Oh, that's interesting. It could be, you know, we're just like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. The way he talked about it, like Ooh, that's interesting. I never thought about these, but look, I'm not saying there is. I like Jewish people. I get along with them. My PBD impression is kind of wonky right now, but like I always get along with them. Every Jew I met, but there could be a cabal. I'm not saying there is one. There could be one. Let's talk about that.
Right.
But Genesis is like, no, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is lunacy. This is absolute. And he was able to say why, and like every curiosity, he was able to be like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And just like, it's sort of, you could feel this lid close where then PBD's producer was like, I think that's all really well said. And I have to agree. And I don't think there's anything else to discuss here. Like you could feel that closure. And the sad thing is that Dennis Prager suffered a horrible accident recently. I'm not sure if you're following.
No,
and he like slipped in the home and he's like in recovery, but they haven't said any details.
Oh, you think there's some foul play there?
No, God. I think he had a personal accident in his house, and they put it out on his website. I'm saying that because that's what everyone's talking about online right now. Is sending prayers for Dennis Prager and updates, and it's really not good because he is a real hero in this regard.
Where has he been the last year and a half? Has he just been on his own show? Like, how come he hasn't been making the circuits, making the case for Israel? Has he just
Dennis
been
has
on
a radio?
Own
Dennis is on traditional radio every day, I think.
So he is making the case. Just I haven't heard it. I haven't seen.
Oh
it.
No, yeah, he debated Cenk and Dave Smith on with Sagar. Didn't you see that one? Sagar hosted a debate with him and Batya versus Dave Smith and Cenk.
I mean, I watch a lot of this stuff, and I haven't seen him until last week. So I wish he got out more. Yeah,
he's been, and he was very silent on the Candace stuff intentionally for a while because it was so heartbreaking for him. And he ran through every piece she ever said just to make sure he got it right. And then he published the letter.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
The letter?
Yeah.
How was it?
I thought it was fair and very precise and, methodical and careful and addressed everything, left no stone unturned. But and he arrives at the conclusion that is like the inevitable conclusion of like what he explained on PBD. For reasons only God knows, and I can only say this. For reasons only God knows. And I've spoken to God. I had a call with God last week about this, and I had him on my show. Like, I'm getting the inflection down. For reason, you have to have it as if there's something in your mouth you have not yet swallowed.
He also talks like what he's about to say is the most important thing anyone's ever going to hear.
I went to for reasons only God knows they only had vitamin D milk left. I do not know why, but I bought it.
I feel like he's probably like a monster as a customer in a restaurant.
Please send it back right now. I have never had a steak this overcooked in my life, and for reasons only God knows. And I say this respectfully but hesitantly at the same time. For reason, he sounds like
waiter.
Send it back. It gets all like,
my wife is miserable. You can look at her face. You can tell she's miserable.
She has never. And this is so overcooked. It's a sin. It's sinful how overcooked this is. This is an abomination to God, and only God knows. Prayers for Dennis Prager. I really hope he's okay and makes a full recovery.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, we want to let you know that Ami's House is now on Patreon. We love doing extra content, bonus footage with every episode. The best way to support us is to head on over to Patreon, become a guest, and support the show for $5 a month.
If you like watching Ami cut me off, Patreon is
Patreon.com/Ami's House for bonus content. Thanks so much for your support and become a guest.
The other interesting thing I heard recently, I forgot who said this, maybe you saw it also, but I thought it was a great line where they said, a crucifix is not an anti-Semitic. Is not a racist symbol.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take a crucifix and you put it on someone's lawn and you burn it, it becomes a racist symbol.
Right.
She said the same thing about the Palestinian flag. It is not nothing wrong with the Palestinian flag, but when you stand outside of a shul holding a Palestinian flag, it has no longer anything to do with the Palestinians.
Right. It has to do with
a
Jewish
nice argument. Yeah,
who said that? Do you know?
It might have been Eleka Leblon.
Leblon. Our dream girl.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. She's been delivering smackdowns too.
She's going to be on trigonometry at some point. If it hasn't come out already. I saw her post a picture with them. Yeah.
I'm sure. Who did they just have on? They had on that. Oh man.
Ahmed.
No, they had on this soldier, this Green Beret soldier. Did you see that clip?
O'Neill Freitas?
John Freitas?
Yeah, I saw that guy.
Freitas,
Yeah, I saw Dave Smith did a reaction video.
I watched Dave's
I didn't
reaction
watch it.
too.
He's
Look, I have a different angle on this with Dave Smith because I do have respect for him. I think Dave is very genuine. I think that's pretty clear. Like, I think Dave has a lot of integrity and like believes
I think so too.
in passion and believes in what and I think he's more informed than you think. I think he hasn't just read surface level stuff. I think he knows a bit of the history and all this, but where I just can't square the circle is like that he will admit having no authority on military tactics, how stuff should be operated, and how to execute and prosecute a war, and then we'll go to prescribe that they should not be doing this with this proclamation and platitude. They don't have to do this. Yeah. They just don't. And I'm like, what? What'd you say?
You had an amazing line privately to me about that you were like, oh, I should have said this, but you were like, I have a feeling if you were running this war, you'd lose.
Yeah, you would lose. Yeah. Exactly. If you were prosecuting this war, you would lose it based on your standards that would hold you to a position of sacrificing the security of your side.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you'd be willing or not willing to do, but you can't say, look, I admit I haven't been in these situations. But then he goes and prescribes with authority, with some full authority over how it should or should not be done, while just admitting that you have no idea what it's really like to prosecute a war. Yeah. I went through it, like, and there's parts that I'm like, okay, fair. And then I'm like, parts where I'm just like, what? Like, I can't understand how you have the arrogance or this authority to prescribe how to do this, and he did the whole thing where he equated the threat of Hamas to Israelis to some random homeless guy who's just harmless little hobo that's not going to hurt you. And I'm like, Dave, Hamas will hurt them and has hurt them. It's like, what a false equivalency that is. And maybe he'll see this and eviscerate me. I will eviscerate you.
I want to have his co-host. Seems really interesting. Mm-hmm. He seems to have like grown up Orthodox or something.
Oh, interesting. The guy who he has the show with. So this
he seems to know a lot about Gemara.
Yeah, his solo reaction video was just a reaction video. I appreciate that he takes. I watched it, and I watch a lot of his like response to Constantine and stuff, and so I respect. Like, I like that he's into this. I like that he takes the time and is like passionate, and he's like a comic who is in that space. But there's like he's very passionate about this as he is about other things, and about like this is a very big passion of his to be intellectually curious and read and whatever. And I enjoy debating him. And it's like, I don't look, the people who like, after my conversation with him with Candace, my debate with him, they're like, Dave Smith's self-hating, he's a self-hating Jew, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think he's right about a lot of that. Like, self-hating is kind of even for the worst of them, is like a really ridiculous term. Nobody hates themselves. You have to be a little more precise than that. And I don't think he falls into that category either at all. I think he's naive and insensitive to like the plight and the historical oppression and persecution that the Jewish community has faced, and holds that sort of like, it's not going to happen, guys. Like downplays it, but that doesn't mean he's self-hating or even hateful. It's like his worst sin is naivete, in my opinion, and this sort of like arrogant authority over how things should be done, while admitting he has no military experience or whatever. In other words, he will say like, Israel has a right to go after the people who attacked it, but they don't have to do this. Which is where what? What do you mean? Where do you draw that? Where do you draw that from? But anyway, but I come out more on the side of liking Dave and what he does, and I think it's healthy. Forces us to kind of confront a lot of the presumptions and things.
That's a generous perspective.
I don't like when he goes, and this is what a lot of the pro-Israel camp does. A lot of the pro-Zion. That's not an argument to say this is what they do. Like, tackle the ideas and the issues. Don't tropify it into something. I tried not to do that with him. And when we debated, he didn't do that too much with me. But in general, like, I think he's still somebody who, because it's in good faith, a lot of his things, it's like he could have views that I even think are like really harmful, dangerous, wrong, naive, but I still like him as an actor in the space. And I know he pisses you off. His temperament pisses you off.
No, I mean, I suppose if there was somebody with his popularity and charisma. I'm not saying that you're not the person, but he has a much bigger audience. Like I wish there was someone on the other side of that spectrum, as big as he is, making the same sorts of arguments. It's just frustrating that I think a lot of he gets by on a lot of charisma and good looks and eloquence and comedy, and he hides some of his bad ideas might be hiding behind that.
Behind the charm. Behind
the charm, yeah, because he's obviously very charismatic.
Well, that's why I'd like to see him debate Yaron Brook or Douglas Murray or Freitas, that guy. Like, have him on the show.
No, but I'm saying, but he might even come out ahead of that because he's just more fun to listen to. I wish there was like
Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray's fun to listen to in a certain way too. I think that would be a good conversation. Could be like he has. Douglas Murray's a silver tongue.
He's not as cool though. Dave Smith's very cool.
Yeah, in that way. Like I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's frustrating. No one has yet. Like, I mean, I hope you get there and go there. But like, I wish we had our like Sacha Baron Cohen or Jon Stewart, like someone who could go head to head with them there.
Right. I mean, Dave is fairly unique in the entertainment space as someone uniquely passionate about this issue and other kind of issues. He's more known, I think, as a commentator talker with a comedic sensibility than as a stand-up. And his specials, it's not like you're seeing specials and things.
I've never even seen a stand-up clip.
Me neither. I think I've seen little bits of it. But also what's weird with Dave is like I agree with him on everything else, almost everything else. I don't know if he realizes that, but like I used to watch him in the days with like Reason. He opened at some Reason conference. I saw a clip of that back in the day, and like you saw him take down Chris Cuomo, with regard to Rogan and ivermectin. Did you watch that clip where he calls out Chris Cuomo for lying about Joe Rogan? All that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't agree with his isolationism and foreign policy stuff, but like on a lot of issues we're aligned, and one of us is wrong here on the Israel thing because we clearly hold a lot of the same principles and views in other regards. And one thing I will admit to after I reflected on that conversation a lot and the debate we had is like, I am definitely biased. Like I know that and I can admit to that. Whereas he liked to claim, look, I am not defending Hamas, but you are defending Israel. Like, and he tried to draw it as like, I have no dog in this. I'm just trying to be fair as a referee here or whatever. My answer to that is like, I am biased in the sense that I have a kinship and a closeness with Israel, the country, a relationship with Jews in Israel, family members there and all that. But that doesn't make me on principle wrong. To me, it's like saying I have a cousin who's being attacked by somebody. I'm going to defend my cousin in that case. And yes, I have a subjective closeness and bias because he's my cousin, so I don't want him to be hurt. But that doesn't mean he's the bad guy. Right. Just because I'm biased towards him. Maybe, you know what I mean? You might question my arguments with more scrutiny because he's a relative of mine or I'm connected. But if you still evaluate it, I still think my arguments, you know, have he had a lot to answer for that weren't answered. And that was mainly centered around the idea that you're arguing for certain natural rights on behalf of people who don't share those values with you and want something completely different than land, geography, or two states. And they actually want, from a religious, theological, ideological perspective, to wipe out all the Jews. And that's not because the Jews occupied them. It's because Israel exists at all. They didn't go and slaughter Jordanians or Egyptians. They didn't try to attack them when they were under their occupation, only when Jews are. But that was the crux of the argument. But I probably, for the sake of integrity, I should say that, like, that's a bias of mine. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I have a connection to Israel. But just because of that, that's not why I'm making the case, because you should be pro-Israel or whatever, because I care about them more than, other issues.
Doesn't disqualify, He actually, he inspired me to look into, because he likes to talk about how the early Zionists were terrorists themselves. And, except instead of being in jail, they became prime minister. So I'm actually learning about that. Yeah. And it's wild in like the pre 1948, what some of the Zionist, basically terrorist groups were doing. And so I'm learning about that now in detail. But even so, you still can't really compare them to what's going on with Hamas and Hezbollah. Like they messed up a lot, and even the Mossad messed up a lot and killed civilians. But it was all accidentally. It was all never the target.
You mean the actions of the groups like the Haganah before they formed the IDF were
yeah, like the Shamir, I think it was called. Yeah. And then they
and
were
the King David,
targeting
people saw the King
British
David
military personnel.
and the King David was
And they messed up, but they also targeted like civilians who were working with the British government, and they were targeting civilians. Like they killed civilians who were working in military capacities. I mean, and then also the Mossad, when they were going after military targets, accidentally killed civilians. Like it's not like it didn't happen, but even if all that's in the open, even if you understand that person by person, it's still not like Hamas. You still can't compare these two entities.
I think at the end of the day, you can concede the point entirely and still accept that it's a matter of degree.
Right,
and it's a matter to which the general population supports a certain means by which of doing something. Right. And the context of the time by which all of these groups are fighting in a power vacuum in the collapse of an Ottoman Empire, where you have Arab nationalism and Zionism fighting. And on the outset, like you can still come to, I think, the same conclusion. That's what if you read Benny Morris, Righteous Victims, you realize what is going on here in the power players, the imperialist powers, British, French, all this stuff that's going on. What it certainly is not is Jews marching in and saying, and just doing a displacement in this sort of cookie cutter way. And it's not also that there's nobody there, and I get it. It's not not rosy on both sides.
The reason I brought it up is because I think a really powerful tool against people like Dave Smith is actually being able to concede, like, yes, those things happen. Yes, like like I know that history better than you,
right?
And if you want to get into it, let's get into it, and we can concede where we weren't perfect.
And that's where I think the conversations and the points he makes are valuable, because it makes you. It's just like when you're competing against somebody in a battleground of trying to figure out what the truth is and what your position is. Like you find the weaker spots. And you find where you can make certain concessions and whatnot. I mean, without having to sort of feel like you're covering your tracks and all that. There was one question in our conversation.
And just to put a pin on that also, in the end, those radical, more terrorist-minded groups did not win out as the people who ran the state. Ben Gurion was like against that, and him and his people ended up actually running the state and and put those people on the sidelines. So whatever, that's just a pin in that.
Michael, you're getting canceled by other Jews for this one. But I was also going to add, I forgot, like in the one area of that conversation, which still troubles me till this day, where I got a little stumped because really, I was trying to figure out what was wrong with the question, because I smelled something very wrong with the question, was when they both, Candace and him, asked me like this sort of trick gotcha corner question, which seems like a softball, but I smelled something very wrong with it, where they were like, would Israel have to kill every single Palestinian? Would that be justified in order to win? Like, does it never stop, essentially? Is that the standard, where every single Palestinian should have to be killed in order to bring back the hostages? Something like that. It was like that. Is that worth bringing back the? And I was like, what you're really asking, when I thought about it, I'm like, I was trying to be like, well, the fact that you can't just answer that right away, is so disturbing to me. That's what she said. And I get why that was disturbing to her, because it seems like a softball. But the reason I was puzzled by that, and I had to think about that, was because given who I believe the aggressors are and the defenders are in the situation, effectively what you're saying is, at what point should Israel just give up and start taking it? That was what I was like. The answer is no. First of all, there are non-combatants, there are children, there are innocent people in this thing that if they can be spared, obviously should be spared, like as a value of human life and Israeli life and Palestinian life. They're always trying to get you to say Israeli life is clearly just worth more. Objectively, it's not worth more. But my point is, what's wrong with the framing of that question is it completely confuses who's perpetuating the war. Yeah. And I said, like, effectively, you're asking me, at what point should Israel stop and give up and continue to allow to be terrorized and continue to allow their hostage? I didn't. Yeah. I only crystallized that thought later on. I just kind of said, like, okay, later on in the conversation, I revisited and said, no, that shouldn't be the case. But I still was stuck with this gnawing thing of like, and it crystallized for me, like, you're really asking me, because Hamas is the one who attacked on October 7th, are keeping the hostages and not surrendering. How long should Israel just tolerate it? When should they just say, forget it, we tolerate the terrorism, you should just keep our hostages? Like, that's what you're asking me. Because civilians keep dying. Yeah, keep going.
No, I think you can answer it in that way. Chaviv Retegur was on a Counterpoint, which is like breaking points with two other hosts, and they did a similar thing. They played him a clip that someone posted to Twitter of a little baby in Gaza crying all night.
Yeah,
he recorded on his phone his mother saying, "I'm going to find you food soup. I'm going to find you food soup." This like awful, heartbreaking clip, and they're like, Chaviv, like, do you feel bad about that? Like, how do Israelis feel when they hear that? And his answer to them was like you're saying. He didn't answer the question, but what he said was, "When you ask me that question, this is what I hear." And he said, "What I hear is right now there are 14 million people in Sudan who are displaced and who are going through far worse than that, and you don't care about that."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering why you care about this and not that. That's what I hear when you ask the question.
And then they would say, we hear a whataboutism. You're just evading responsibility by just shifting the subject. Now, both are valid points in a way. I think his point is valid. Like, it's odd to me that you're doing that as a way to hold Israel to a higher standard than any other conflict or whatever.
But you could answer that question by saying, like, here's what I hear when you ask me that question. Here's what I hear, and then make your point.
Yeah, as a technique of like being clear about what I'm addressing. But I didn't have the thought crystallized when it was posed to me like that, because I was like it's such a strange question to ask to the people that I believe are defending themselves against a terrorist organization that's holding hostages and continues to fire rockets and won't surrender. It's like, that's who's perpetuating the war, in my opinion, just because the optics give you a different impression and you could be swayed by that. It's like, if civilian casualties continue to mount, as horrible as that is, but it's as a result of the fact that the hostages have not been returned and they continue to fire rockets at Israel and threaten to do October 7th again, and have already done it. Like, in any war, what's the answer there, where it's like you have to keep defending yourself? Or do you just stop doing it? Do you just stop? Like, and they don't give ever an alternative answer as to how they should prosecute it. It's always like, you just shouldn't do that. And and I guess my question is, like, do you accept war at all? Is war ever okay for you? And what does a good war look like? You're saying, if you know that there's not just a terrorist in that house, but a family member and this and this and this and other civilians, like, he would always paint that picture. Then when you strike that building, you are committing murder in the first degree, right? That was his claim. And I'm like, okay, what if it's just him and a friend? You're good with that? What if it's just him and a wife, no kids? Like, you realize where you're drawing these sort of arbitrary lines of morality around war, and I think you have to start in a different position when you're talking about war, which is lethal. And I would want it to be over as quickly as possible. You know what I'm saying? But he's like, he draws this thing and he paints a picture. Yeah, if there's a terrorist there, you can assassinate the terrorist. But he's next. So I guess I want those questions answered. If the terrorist is near anybody who is innocent and he's putting their lives in danger by embedding himself amongst civilians, like, if it's one person, is that okay? Like, you're in a way playing this sort of arbiter of morality, kind of randomly.
Yeah,
I don't know. 1 kid, 2 kid, is the kid 17, 13? You know what I'm saying? Or are you putting the onus on responsibility on the? It's like what Fetterman said about the terrorist with the pager.
Yeah, it's daddy's fault.
It's crazy. But I just mean, like, we didn't get far enough in the conversation. Yeah. So I'm always open to more of that. And because I think he's a good faith actor, and I actually do.
It would be amazing.
Dave Smith button. He should come on.
If Daily Wire Plus did a Thanksgiving with Ben and Candace,
oh my God.
And it was just both of their families together having Thanksgiving dinner, and that'd be incredible. Like,
with
Ben
with PBD and Shank and oh my God,
be there? Who would be the third person who would just be
a Thanksgiving dinner? I mean, you would have Steven
Ben
Crowder.
Candace and AOC, maybe?
No, Steven Crowder. You'd have to have people in this space. I don't know if you know. Milo Yiannopoulos shows up at dessert.
Milo, yes, that would be great.
He was on
With
Tim
special,
Pool.
with special guest Milo Yiannopoulos.
He was on Tim Pool the night before me. Oh my God, he's crazy.
Did it still smell like him?
He's like, you found the only Jew who's stupid. Look at it. It's Christian. This is a Christian country, and we know that the Canterbury archbishops believe such things. Yeah, he's now on a rampage on Twitter, destroying his old friends on the alt-right, which is strange. He's just a naughty, naughty boy. Like he's like Agent Smith.
He's a provocateur.
Yeah.
He's one of the only ones left doing it.
Yeah. Remember I told you how Laura Loomer shared me on Twitter? So now he's going after her. He's been going after her on Twitter. These were old like buddies in a crew. And he's like, the things that I know about these people, I could tell you everything. Everything. Like he's talking about how they're like sluts and whores, and he's showing pictures of their plastic surgery. It's like hell hath no fury like a scorned Milo or a scorned Laura Loomer. It's crazy. Anyway.
This is a world I don't think I want to know more about, frankly.
Was there anything else to discuss? I mean,
one thing I want to say about the ICC arrest warrants.
Yeah.
Just very, very quickly. Something I learned today, people might not know, is there's the ICJ, which holds countries accountable for war crimes.
The International Court of Justice.
Right, which was established after World War II. And then there's the ICC. Do you know when it was established?
1948.
2002.
Oh, okay.
It's this like brand new thing that whereas the ICJ holds countries accountable, the ICC holds individuals accountable.
Okay.
It's like this new thing that does not have jurisdiction in Israel. Like I don't think America or Israel have not agreed to their, so like it's not this like the UN condemns Israel. It's like this kind of like court that it's debatable whether or not it's like a real thing anyway has issued this warrant, and it's not quite as official as an onlooker might
so you have
think it is.
The ICJ, the ICC, and that's important because people just see a headline, they see an abbreviation, they go, "Ooh, it's on now." But there's I
thought.
ICC, but there's also a JCC,
and everyone holds by the JCC.
No matter what kind of Jew you are, even non-Jew, we've all been to one, and we've all enjoyed ourselves for a good swim and a good snack, right?
Mm-hmm. And I can't lie. I've never been a JCC person. I've never been a JCC person. It just hasn't been part of my life.
You're a self-hating Jew.
They issued my arrest warrant.
the JCC should issue the arrest warrant. Oh God, what was that sound?
I don't know.
Should issue arrest warrants.
I don't know.
That should be a funny sketch. The JCC issues arrest warrants for these various Jew-hating places. But I know what you mean. The ICC. First of all, there's no such thing as a world court or a world government. It's like if you believe in countries' sovereignty, there's no such thing. The Nuremberg trial.
The nafkamina is that they can't land in a country.
Signatory, yeah.
They maybe can't go on vacation to Paris.
So I am so curious if he showed up on a plane to Paris. I mean, to me, the spinelessness of the Western leaders. They wouldn't arrest him.
I think they would, if they didn't arrest them, they would have to leave. I don't know. I guess the pact that they're part of that supports this court.
Did you see Trudeau? Trudeau, when asked about it, would you arrest him in Canada?
He said yes.
Yeah, he was like, "We will abide." No, he didn't. He said, "We will abide by the standards and practices of the ICC as has been elaborated and enumerated in their laws. We respect, But so, I'm curious if he called the bluff. What would happen?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a problem for them if they would lose a lot of authority, right?
All's well and good when you say, "Oh, sure, human rights thing, well, let's sign on," and then you're like, "Oh, they're turning on."
But it was also I don't know if this is like an original take. It's probably not, but like they're like, "Well, we got to do one for Hamas too, so let's do it for someone who's dead already."
They did it for Sinwar?
They did it for Sinwar? No, for Mohammed Deif.
Yeah, who's dead?
Who's already dead. I think they're like, we don't know if he's dead, although the Israelis say he is, but we don't know if he is.
Hamas does not claim he's dead yet, so we'll issue that. Huh?
Yeah.
Right. I don't buy it. Nice try.
Right.
And
but it's also like
the false equivalency, right? We said the same thing, like saying,
Yeah.
with Netanyahu and Hamas, there's both bad. I'm like,
well, yeah. And also, if you're saying under the pretense of rescuing hostages, you are committing these crimes against humanity. But we do all agree hostages were taken. So why not issue a warrant for the rest of the people who took the hostages to start off with?
mm-hmm.
Like they're like, everyone agrees on that, but
Mm-hmm.
they won't touch that. That's not under debate. You know,
I think it was like Douglas Murray who said it's easy enough to condemn, like when people are too cowardly to condemn actual evil, they will prescribe evil to people who are good, or at least like the actors in the region who are trying to do good, because it's easier to have that kind of projection where you're just like, we're just going to condemn the West, America, Israel, because we don't want to actually face. To finish on a Prager point, people say evil is dark. Evil is not dark. Evil is bright light. Evil is bright light. It is so blinding that people on the left cannot face it. It is so blinding that they won't open their eyes to see it. It is so bright, it is blinding. And when they do that, they will push their condemnation to the darker parts of the world that are good and invisible to the human eye.
and let us say,
Amen. Prayers for Dennis Prager. I think I cracked that impression. Maybe I should do
That
something.
was good, man.
It was a pleasure unpacking these with you, Michael.
So nice.
If you haven't followed us on Patreon for extra juicy content, we'll give maybe 5 more minutes here, Michael. I'll pause and we could do a quick another Patreon thing.
All right,
So
we'll get into the real thing.
We don't talk about this enough, but Michael's got a newsletter.
Yeah, check out my newsletter.
Freaking hilarious.
Ami finally read it. Thank you.
I haven't read it. I didn't know you had to read it. I thought I'd just get the email, you know?
Yeah.
Tell us what it's called.
It's called Context is Everywhere. I'll put the links in the bottom already, but I'll put it also.
Mm-hmm.
I send out like an original weird story every week, and sometimes I send out some serious thoughts if something serious is going on. So please check that out.
And the heads of the 3 major universities, Harvard, MIT, and Penn, have an anti-Semitic version of your newsletter called "What is the Context of Everywhere?" I screwed up the line. What is the context is everywhere.
Context is nowhere.
Yeah.
Context is nowhere.
Very good.
Context is everywhere. Thanks.
It's a great read. It'll tickle your brain. That's what I call it. It's a real brain tickler.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. And I also, I don't know if you saw this, I also put in like content recommendations, so things I'm watching. Movies, TV shows, videos you should check out.
Yes. Okay, good. So follow that and stay tuned on this episode. Go to Patreon for some extra goodies. Let's give it a stop. Take care, everybody.